The United States is one out of 193 countries in the United Nations, and yet we pay 22% of the entire budget and more. In fact, we pay far more than anybody realizes. The United States bears an unfair cost burden.
President Trump calling on all UN member nations to pay their fair share toward that organization's budget, arguing that the United States bears an unfair cost burden. We ran the numbers, and as it turns out, President Trump is right. The United States is the largest contributor to the UN by far, contributing 22%, followed by Japan and China, who each contribute less than half of that. Vince Coglianese is back with me, along with former Department of Homeland Security consultant Mustafa Tameez, a Democratic strategist and now senior fellow at the American Leadership Forum. Mustafa, let me start with you. You look at what Russia is paying. They're part of the Permanent Security Council. They always interfere when it's time to take action against the bad rogue nations of the world. It's just a structure so poorly done. And again, we bear the brunt of everything from money to manpower.
Well, look, I mean, President Trump's tapping into something. Americans never want to be taken advantage anywhere in this. So I agree with him in that. But he started the speech saying that we spent $700 billion in our military. And if you look at the numbers, that's $3.3 billion when it comes to our investment in the UN. And so when North Korea is going AWOL, we have to go to the UN to put this apparatus together to put these sanctions. And the UN we founded it. It's based in New York. And you want it there. You don't want for a couple of $1 billion for it to be based in China or to be based in Russia. So it is really to our benefit to do that.
Would anything be different if it was based in China or Russia?
Absolutely. Look, we have not gone to the UN and not got what we wanted. Imagine if the United Nations was convened in Moscow or if the United Nations was convened in Beijing. I mean, we founded this organization. We are the conveners of the world in New York, versus it being convened in Moscow. And candidly, we spent $700 billion on our military. That's what President said today. And the total expense that we put on the United Nations is $3 billion. So I guess we're kind of arguing over pennies when we're talking about security.
No, I think, Vince, what we're arguing over is responsibility. If you have 193 nations, right, it started out as the League of Nations. Let me bring Vince in, though, for a second, Mustafa, because listen, here's the bottom line. It's about responsibility. How much is South Korea putting in? North Korea is their neighbor. It's their responsibility. Yeah, we are the policemen of the world. We've paid a heavy price for that through treasure, through blood. It's about time the rest of the world steps up.
Yeah, and especially you look at places like China and India and their control of what percentage of the world's wealth, and the fact that they're not really paying up anywhere near what the United States is at all. So 22% of the entire UN budget funded by the United States, it's a meaningful thing. Now, what we're arguing about here is really not, Trump is not looking to eradicate the UN. He's not looking to stop U.S. funding into the UN. In fact, he really called for efficiencies here. He came at this, I think, from the perspective of a businessman. What is our return on investment by being involved in the United Nations? Can it be more efficient? Right. Absolutely. It's bloated. It's unwieldy. We're involved in peacekeeping missions that don't have clear ends in sight, and sometimes those peacekeepers act poorly.
Yeah.
Those missions can be done.
Goes a lot further than just
Americans.
the money. Mustafa, you got 10 seconds, buddy. I know you want to get in there. Go ahead.
Well, look, I mean, if we're going to bring the world in a peaceful way, we're going to have to have places to convene. I'd rather we convene them here in the United States than Russia or China or any other place to do it. And it's only a few $1 billion rather than $70 billion that we spend on defense.
Yeah, a few billion here, a few billion there. Next thing you know, you got $20 trillion in debt.